Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining in on our ELA virtual instruction for week 4. This is for April 13th to the 17th. This lesson will be the second lesson that starts off quarter 4. The standard that we are working with this week is RL 1.2. It is a reading standard. You're just supposed to be able to determine a theme within a text and analyze in detail its development over the course of a text, including how it emerges and is shaped and refined by specific detail. A little bit more about that standard. So we know from previous lessons that theme is just essentially a life lesson. So the message, lesson, or universal belief about life that the author wants readers to understand based on what the characters go throughout the story. So a theme isn't just like a subject. So for example, love isn't a theme, that's a thematic topic. So how you would create that or put that into a thematic statement would be something like when we learned about Romeo and Juliet. Obviously, love is a huge thematic topic that is addressed in the play. So instead of saying love is the theme, you would say something like love is a violent, ecstatic, overpowering force that supersedes all other values, loyalties, and emotions. So that is something that would be a thematic statement or a theme, a life lesson, rather than just a thematic topic. Just what you are responsible to complete for this week. This is just an overview. Of course, you have the attendance question. You have an Achieve article for this week, which is due on Friday. You have a pre-reading activity. We're reading Night, an excerpt from a book by Elie Wiesel. And you are going to do a during reading activity, a post-reading activity, and then, of course, your independent reading and log. So first and foremost, if you have not done so already, please go ahead and answer the attendance question on Teams. The question for this week is, what is one good thing that has come of us being quarantined? Think of something positive that has started happening in the world, or that something that you have experienced personally. Your response cannot be nothing, okay? Something good has come from this. Post your answers by April 17th to be marked present for the week. Go ahead and pause the video here if you have not done that yet. The second task is to read your Achieve article, a look back at Elie Wiesel, and answer the questions. There are only 8 questions. You remember that you need to score a 75% or higher for this article to count. Okay, now let's get ready to knock out our pre-reading activity, which is assignment 4A. Go ahead and open up that assignment on your document. As you already know, strong readers always activate their background knowledge and make personal connections to any text that they read. So before responding to the prompt, we're going to watch a short video that relates to the content of today's text. In continuing our journey towards the fight for survival, we'll explore Elie Wiesel's recollection of the tragic experiences within a Nazi Germany concentration camp during the Holocaust, which was talked about in his memoir called Night. Please note that a memoir is a collection of memories that an individual writes about moments or events, both public or private, that took place in that person's lifetime. Now, we'll build our understanding of life in the concentration camp through the YouTube video that is located here. So go ahead and copy and paste this into your browser. I'll see you back here once you are finished. And then once you are done with that, you're going to complete the pre-reading activity. So go ahead and pause the video here and watch this YouTube video, and I'll see you back on the assignment. Okay, after you have finished watching that YouTube video, I want you to respond to the 2 questions in the space provided. Just type out your answer right here. They do need to be more than 1 sentence. So the directions: after you have viewed the YouTube video, the Auschwitz album, visual evidence of the process leading to the mass murder at Auschwitz-Birkenau, respond to the 2 questions below. The first question: in the face of inhumanity and all the evils of mass genocide, do you believe that it is possible for a concentration camp prisoner to retain a sense of hope for a better future? Or do you believe that the realities of the Holocaust have stripped prisoners of optimism? Explain your position. So I want this to be a couple of sentences here. You can't really answer this in 1 sentence, okay? second question here. In the video, Elie Wiesel discusses his separation from his mother upon his arrival to the concentration camp. The separation of families was a common practice during the Holocaust and in some cases still occurs today. Why do you believe that family separation was a routine practice during the Holocaust? Consider how a united family that stays together may challenge the function of a concentration camp. Just type your answer right below here. Okay. Go ahead and pause your the video here so that you can answer these two questions. Take about 10-15 minutes on this. It should take you about that. Go ahead and pause your video, and I'll see you back on the PowerPoint. Okay, so we are going to access the actual assignment, but before we get into reading, I want to set a purpose for reading. So we know that we always have to answer an essential question. So our essential question here, how does Elie Wiesel develop the theme of strength through unity in his memoir Night? So here I've already given you that thematic topic, okay? Strength through unity. I want you to come up with this idea of how does he develop that theme, okay? And this is just from the excerpt that we're going to read. So strength is the ability to withstand great force or pressure physically and or mentally. So keep that in mind here, that mental strength also plays a part here. Also unity. So unity is just togetherness, often with shared beliefs, goals, and experiences. While reading, we must ask ourselves how Wiesel and fellow prisoners are strengthened by their unity or togetherness as they endure the horrors of life in the concentration camp. More specifically, during the selection process of mass genocide, we should think about how the inmates empower one another in various ways and compel each other to persist in their fight for survival. Okay, so remember that you are going to be, as always, working on the assignment as you are reading. Okay, so the assignment looks like this. It's assignment 4B. It is your during reading activity. Okay. So let's locate the graphic organizer. I've already filled out some for you here, and this is just to model what this should look like. Okay. So let's look at the actual assignment. So while reading Night on pages 307 to 312, reflect on the unity illustrated throughout the interactions among the prisoners, veterans of Blockle Test, Elie, Tibby, Yossi, and Ellie's father. For each interaction, column 1, describe the interaction, column 2, and analyze its impact on the prisoners in column 3. It will be useful for the, I'm adding this here, sorry, I guess I don't need to read that part here, but I'm adding this here for those that don't watch the videos that I post. For those of you that are listening, thank you very much. Okay, so once again, we are looking at the interactions between the prisoners. Where do we see evidence of unity among the prisoners? And we're just going to basically cite where that's at. We're going to write out a description of what's happening, that interaction that's happening, and then we want to talk about the impact of that interaction. Okay, so I have the first few here written out for you, but we're going to just go back into the text. We're going to access the text right now, and we are going to start reading. So remember, to access the text, you want to go to your DCPS website. You want to go to My HRW. If it'll open up here. I guess I have to redo it. So you want to go to Blended Learning. Click on My HRW. It'll ask you for your DCPS login. X out of these. You're going to click on Student eBook. And this is actually on page 307. So if you're not on that page already, you can just click up here and type in 307, press this little arrow, and it'll take you to this page. Okay, we've already learned a little bit about Elie Wiesel in that short video that we watched, but I'm just going to read this about the author portion here. Elie Wiesel was born in 1928, and he is a teacher, writer, and Nobel Peace Prize winner. Born in Romania, Wiesel, along with his family, was among millions of European Jews deported to concentration camps during the Holocaust. In 1944, the Nazis sent the family to Auschwitz, where Wiesel's mother and sister perished. They passed away. Months later, when Wiesel and his father were moved to Buchenwald concentration camp, his father also died. Buchenwald was eventually liberated, and Wiesel went on to write about his experience. His many works include Dawn and The Accident, both sequels to Night. Okay, so this is just an excerpt from Night. This is a very, very, very good memoir. It's a book. I have given you a link to the actual memoir if you're interested in this. It'll be for free here. It is a very good read. It's also very, very sad, so just be prepared for that. Okay, so we're going to look at this during reading activity. We're going to start reading here. So once again, as I am reading, I'm going to be looking for interactions between the prisoners. I'm going to then describe what's happening, and then I'm going to talk about the impact of that. Okay. You have a number of notes here for what these little things mean. We might not know a lot of these words, so as I'm going through, I'm going to be clicking on these and reading the definitions. So the SS, which is German for Defense Force, an armed unit of the Nazi Party that controlled concentration camps. So that basically those are like the armed guards that are in the concentration camps. The SS offered us a beautiful present for the new year. We had just returned from work. As soon as we passed the camp's entrance, we sensed something out of the ordinary in the air. The roll call was shorter than usual. The evening soup was distributed at great speed, swallowed as quickly. We were anxious. I was no longer in the same block as my father. They had transferred me to another Kommando, which is German for command, a small group organization for laborers in the camps. The construction one, where 12 hours a day I hauled heavy slabs of stone. The head of my new block was a German Jew, small, with piercing eyes. That evening, he announced to us that henceforth no one was allowed to leave the block after the evening soup. A terrible word began to circulate soon after: selection. We knew what it meant. An SS would examine us. Whenever he found something extremely frail, a Musalman was what we called those inmates. He would write down his number, good for the crematorium. After the soup, we gathered between the bunks. The veterans told us, "You're lucky to have been brought here so late. Today, this is paradise compared to what the camp was 2 years ago. Back then, Buna was a veritable hell." This is a section of the concentration camp, so it's a certain place. No water, no blankets, less soup and bread. At night, we slept almost naked and the temperature was 30 below. We were collecting corpses by the hundreds every day. Work was very hard. Today, this is a little paradise. The capos back then had orders to kill a certain number of prisoners every day. So the capos are prisoners who are supposed to perform certain duties for the guards that are there. So these are also prisoners, and they were required to kill other prisoners. And every week, selection, a merciless selection. Yes, you are lucky. Enough! Be quiet, I begged them. Tell your stories tomorrow or some other day. Okay, so this line here, this is line 17 to 26. Okay, this is the first instance that we're going to talk about here. Let me just minimize a couple of these here. Okay, this is the first thing that we see. This is page 308, lines 17 to 26. So I'm just going to write that here. So here, the veterans of the group, those are just people who are already who have been in the concentration camp for a while. They tell Ellie and all the other prisoners about the horrors of experiences in the past and explain why their current placement is a paradise in comparison. I'm sorry. The veterans remind Ellie and others of their sheer luck. So the purpose of them telling them is to try and, essentially eliminate fear, but they don't do that, right? So Ellie starts kind of freaking out. He's just like, I don't want to hear about this right now, right? So the impact here, through this interaction, the veterans attempt to eliminate the fear towards the current concentration camp and build appreciation despite their circumstances. But we know that that's not really what's happening after they say it. So I'm just going to add that here. You can pause the video here and copy this down. That's totally fine. Okay. I'm going to go back to the text here. They burst out laughing. They were not veterans for nothing. Are you scared? We too were scared. and at that time, for good reason. The old men stayed in their corner, silent, motionless, hunted down creatures. Some were praying. One more hour, then we would know the verdict, death or reprieve. Okay, reprieve means the cancellation of or postponement. Postponement meaning like just the stopping of punishment until a later date. And my father, I first thought of him now. How would he pass selection? He had aged so much. Our Blockal test, which is a rank of capos. Remember, a capo is that prisoner that is kind of working for the guards, a prisoner designated by the Nazis to be the leader or representative of a block or group of barracks. Our Blockal tests had not been outside a concentration camp since 1933. He had already been through all the slaughterhouses, all the factories of death. Around 9 o'clock, he came to stand in our midst. Achong, which means, I probably butchered that, but this means attention. Okay, so this one here, there was instant silence. Listen carefully to what I am about to tell you. For the first time, his voice quivered. In a few moments, selection will take place. You will have to undress completely. Then you will go one by one before the SS doctors. I hope you will all pass, but you must try to increase your chances. Before you go into the next room, try to move your limbs, give yourself some color. Don't walk slowly, run. Run as if you had the devil at your heels. Don't look at the SS, run straight in front of you. He paused and then added, and most important, don't be afraid. Okay, so this part here, we're definitely going to be using this here because this is a prisoner who is talking to the barracks here, which he's in charge of. Okay, so that is from page 308, and this is going to be lines 38 to 53. So the Blockal test, which is a prisoner representative, begins to announce that the selection and examination procedure for determining the next prisoners to be killed will begin soon, and explains the process to fellow prisoners. He wishes them success in passing the exam and advises them to add color to their bodies, increasing the appearance of health by moving their limbs, running full force. Okay, so this interaction, the prisoners learn how to train their bodies physically to avoid that perception of weakness. Okay, in other words, they're trying to kind of fake it so that they look healthier than they are in preparation for selection. So ultimately, the prisoners learn how to fight for survival by pushing their bodies to the limit. So just kind of tricking those that are making the selection to not pick them or write down their number. Okay. So I'm going to keep going here. That was a piece of advice he would have loved to be able to follow. I undressed, leaving my clothes on my cot. Tonight there was no danger and they wouldn't be stolen. Tibi and Yossi, who had changed commandos at the same time I did, came to urge me. Let's stay together, it will make us stronger. Yossi was mumbling something. He was probably praying. I had never suspected that Yossi was religious. In fact, I had always believed the opposite. Tibi was silent and very pale. All the block inmates stood naked between the rows of bunks. This must be how one stands for the last judgment. They are coming. Okay, I'm going to pause here. So on this page, we have Tibi and Yossi. Okay, we have these two characters here. They suggest that they stay together in preparation for that selection. I'm sorry. Okay, they want to stay together before the SS starts the selection. So I'm going to add that here. Okay, I would definitely add that on to this. And for those of you that are watching this video, you're lucking out because you are given all of these right here. I'm going to give these to you. I'm going to show you where they are, but I want you to do the thinking for yourself. Okay, so here I would write something like Tibi and who are fellow prisoners urge everyone to stay together in preparation for election by the SS. Okay, so this shows what this is, the impact is, that strength through unity. It shows an increased level of support for one another. Okay, so I'm going to put that here, increased level of support for one another in preparation for this exam. Exam meaning that selection exam. Okay. So that is the impact that this interaction has. Okay, it shows that level of support. Yossi was mumbling something. He probably was praying. I had never suspected that Yossi was religious. Oh, I already read that, sorry. They are coming. 3 SS officers surrounded the notorious Dr. Mengele. Okay, Dr. Mengele was a very famous Nazi physician at Auschwitz, known for conducting very, very cruel experiments. He was extremely famous. If you're interested in that, you can definitely Google him, and there's going to be a lot of information that comes up. The very same who had received us in Birkenau. The Bockel test attempted to smile. He asked us, ready? Yes, we were ready. So were the SS doctors. Dr. Mengele was holding a list, our numbers. He nodded to the Bockel test. We can begin, as if this were a game. The first to go were the notables of the block. The Stubenel test, which I butchered again, a rank of kapos, prisoners designated by the Nazis to be the leaders of their barracks or rooms. Okay, just another set of kapos. They had different names for them. The kapos, the foremen, all of whom were in perfect physical condition, of course. Then came the ordinary prisoners. Dr. Mengele looked over them from head to toe. From time to time, he noted a number. I had but one thought, not to have my number taken down and not to show my left arm. In front of me, there were only Tibby and Yossi. They passed. I had time to notice that Mengele had not written down their numbers. Someone pushed me. It was my turn. I ran without looking back. My head was spinning. You are too skinny. You are too weak. You are too skinny. You are good for the ovens. The race seemed endless. I felt as though I had been running for years. You are too skinny. You are too weak. At last I arrived, exhausted. When I had caught my breath, I asked, did they write me down? No, said Yossi, smiling. He added, anyway, they couldn't have. You were running too fast. I began to laugh. I was happy. I felt like kissing him. At that moment, the others did not matter. They had not written me down. Those whose numbers had been noted were standing apart, abandoned by the whole world. Some were silently weeping. The SS officers left. A Blockel test appeared, his face reflecting our collective weariness. It all went well. Don't worry, nothing will happen to anyone, not to anyone. He was still trying to smile. A poor emaciated Jew questioned him anxiously, his voice trembling. Okay, this part here, we see that we have lines 95 to 98 here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of this right here. Okay, so this is when the Blockel test, like, they encourage them not to worry, which is just, you know, obviously a lie. So these are also prisoners, right? So I'm going to add that here. The Blockel test encourages, I'm going to quote, not to worry. Reassuring that nothing will happen to anyone. Okay, so that's the interaction. Now we want to think of what the impact of that is. This is to the purpose of them trying to tell everyone not to worry is to kind of restore hope. Okay, so restore hope here. I could type, that would be great. Restore hope and optimism. He was still trying to smile. A poor emaciated, which means extremely thin and weak. Jew questioned him anxiously, his voice trembling. But, Sir, they did write me down. At that, the Blockeltest vented his anger. What? Someone refused to take his word? What is it now? Perhaps you think I'm lying? I'm telling you, once and for all, nothing will happen to you. Nothing. You just like to wallow in your despair, you fools. The bell rang, signaling that the selection had ended in the entire camp. With all my strength, I began to race toward Block 36. Midway, I met my father. He came toward me. So, did you pass? Yes. And you? Also. We were able to breathe again. My father had a present for me. A half ration of bread, bartered for something he had found at the depot, a piece of rubber that could be used to repair a shoe. Okay, so here we have our next section here. This is lines 109 to 116. Okay, so we have Ellie and his father. Okay, they've come back together after the selection, and they start talking about the results of the selection. Okay, so they both passed. Ellie's father provides him with bread for his nourishment. There's obviously not a lot of food there, so we're going to add that interaction here. We're going to say Ellie and his father share the results of the selection, stating that they both, Ellie's father also in bread, and we know that there's not very much food for. Okay, so that's the description of the interaction. So what do we think the impact is? We're going to put here, the impact is probably just, if they both pass, this is definitely showing relief. So I'm going to say relief and even some celebration, oddly enough. Okay. Also, nourishment. Because he gave a piece of bread. Okay. We were able to breathe again. My father had a present for me, a half ration of bread bartered for something he had found at the depot, a piece of rubber that could be used to repair a shoe. The bell. It was already time to part, to go to bed. The bell regulated everything. It gave me orders, and I executed them blindly. I hated that bell. Whenever I happened to dream of a better world, I imagined a universe without a bell. A few days passed. We were no longer thinking about the selection. We went to work as usual and loaded the heavy stones onto the freight cars. Then the rations had grown smaller. That was the only change. We had risen at dawn, as we did every day. We had received our black coffee, our ration of bread. We were about to head to the work yard as always. The Blockeltest came running. Let's have a moment of quiet. I have here a list of numbers. I shall read them to you. All those called will not go to work this morning. They will stay in the camp. Okay, so here we have everyone getting ready to go to work outside of the camp, and the Blockeltest, which is the prisoners who work essentially for the guards. They have this list of people who are not going to work. They're going to stay in the camp, and obviously this is indicating something here. So we're going to add that here. That's our next line here, 127. I'm going to keep reading till 139 here. Softly he read some 10 numbers. We understood. These were the numbers from the selection. Dr. Mengele had not forgotten. The Blockeltest turned to go to his room. The 10 prisoners surrounded him, clinging to his clothes. Save us. You promised. We want to go to the depot. We are strong enough to work. We are good workers. We want. He tried to calm them, to reassure them about their fate, to explain to them that staying in the camp did not mean much, had no tragic significance. After all, I stay here every day. Okay, so this is the Blockeltest that comes back and calls the numbers for selection. So I'm going to add that here. Blockeltest calls numbers selection. For those that are called, tries to give them some comfort. And minimize their fear. We know that he's trying to minimize their fear because we know that this is obviously selection. This is where they're going to be killed. So this is the interaction between the Blockle-Tess and the prisoners, and the purpose of this the description is there, and the impact is that he's trying to minimize fear and maintain hope. So I'm going to add that here. All right, next part here. Where was I? The argument was more than flimsy. He realized it, and without another word locked himself in his room. The bell had just rung. Form ranks! Now it no longer mattered that the work was hard. All that mattered was to be far from the block, far from the crucible of death, far from the center of hell. Okay, crucible here means vessel used for melting materials at high temperatures. I saw my father running in my direction. Suddenly, I was afraid. What is happening? He was out of breath, hardly able to open his mouth. Me too, me too. They told me too to stay in the camp. They had recorded his number without his noticing. What are we going to do? I said anxiously. But it was he who tried to reassure me. It's not certain yet. There's still a chance. Today they will do another selection, a decisive one. Decisive just means final. I said nothing. He felt time was running out. He was speaking rapidly. He wanted to tell me so many things. His speech became confused. His voice was choked. He knew that I had to leave in a few moments. He was going to remain alone, so alone. Okay, we're going to back up a little bit to lines 147 to 156. We have Ellie's father informs him that he actually is one of the ones that his number was recorded, and he's been called for selection. But he reminds them that nothing is final by saying that they're going to do another selection. There's still a chance for hope. Okay, so here I'm going to add father informs him that he has been called, but reminds him, or reminds Ellie, that nothing is final and that he will survive. It is for hope. Okay, once again, the purpose of this interaction is for Ellie's father to kind of give a sense of hope still. So we're going to hope here, and he's also being very optimistic. So I'm going to put optimism. Even though he has been selected, he still has the hope that he can survive. Here, take this knife, he said. I won't need it anymore. You may find it useful. Also, take this spoon. Don't sell it. Quickly. Go ahead. Take what I'm giving you. My inheritance. Don't talk like that, Father. I was on the verge of breaking into sobs. I don't want you to say such thing. Keep the spoon and knife. You will need them as much as I. We'll see each other tonight after work. He looked at me with his tired eyes veiled by despair. He insisted. I am asking you, take it. Do as I ask you, my son. Time is running out. Do as your father asks you. Our capo shouted the order to the march. The commando headed toward the camp gate. Left, right. I was biting my lips. My father had remained near the block, leaning against the wall. Then he began to run to try and catch up with us. Perhaps he had forgotten to tell me something, but we were marching too fast. Left, right. Okay, we're going to go back for a couple of lines here. So we have lines 162 to 165. Okay, that's right here. 162 to 165. So here we have Ellie's father gives him his inheritance, which an inheritance is basically something that is passed down from family members when they pass away. So this is a very, very strong line here. Inheritance, usually when someone mentions an inheritance and something really, really valuable, or a lot of money or possessions or something that is meaningful to the family, and here he's talking about a knife and a spoon. So here, Ellie's father, I'm going to add it here. This is an interaction. Ellie's father is his son, his inheritance. That's a really important line, which is a knife and a spoon. And he believes that these tools or these utensils will be very useful to the useful and helpful to him. So I'm going to add that as well. Okay. Now this interaction, this impact, it's not necessarily it's not hope or optimism here, right? So he's just giving him that are essential to. Now, obviously, this we would think of a spoon and a knife as how is that essential to survival, but in the wake of he's about to stay back in the camp and obviously go through another selection and he could potentially die, he gives his son this knife and this spoon, and obviously it's extremely important, and we know that he wouldn't give it to Ellie unless they were essential to his survival. Okay, we're going to go down to lines 166 to 170. So 166 to 170 here. Where is it? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. Okay, don't talk like that, Father. I was on the verge of breaking into sobs. I don't want you to say such things. Keep the spoon and knife. You will need them as much as I. We'll see each other tonight after work. So Ellie insists that his father doesn't give him his inheritance. Okay, so he's trying to reassure him and restore the hope that they're going to be together again after work. So Ellie insists on his father not giving to him, assuring his father that they will be back together that night. This is to try to restore hope and assure him that he will not be. He looked at me with his tired eyes veiled by despair. He insisted, I'm asking you. Take it. Do as I ask you, my son. Time is running out. Do as your father asks you. Our capo shouted the order to march. The commando headed toward the camp gate. Left, right. I was biting my lip. I did read this already, so I'm going to skip through that. We were at the gate. We were being counted. Around us, the din of military music. Then we were outside. Din just means like a loud noise. All day I plodded around like a sleepwalker. Tibby and Yossi would call out to me from time to time, trying to reassure me, as did the capo, who had given me easier tasks that day. I felt sick at heart. How kindly they treated me, like an orphan, I thought. Even now my father is helping me. So this part here, this is lines 182 to 185. Here we have Tibby, Yossi, and even the capo are trying to ease Ellie's heartache for his father because he knows the fate of his father. His father is he stayed back at the camp and will probably be selected. So they even give him easier tasks, and he knows why. So we're gonna have we're gonna write that down. Tibby, the capo, try to ease Ellie's heartache and pain for his father, because Ellie knows most likely. And when I say be selected, that's obviously a negative connotation. Selected for death, essentially. So just keep that in mind. I don't know if I made that clear. So here, this interaction, the impact of this interaction is that they're trying to help him, but they're also trying to reassure him. They're trying to, not make him feel bad. So this is also providing Ellie reassurance that his father will survive. And they are also providing emotional support during this time with the thought idea that his father will father is dying. Okay. I myself didn't know whether I wanted the day to go by quickly or not. I was afraid of finding myself alone that evening. How good it would be to die right there. At last we began the return journey. How I longed for an order to run, the military march, the gate, the camp. I ran toward Block 36. Were there still miracles on this earth? He was alive. He had passed the second selection. He had still proved his usefulness. I gave him back his knife and spoon. Okay, so this last part here, this is the last part of the text. We have Ellie goes back to his block or his section. So Ellie, he even runs towards it. Remember that it's very difficult to sustain any sort of physical activity because they're not getting enough nourishment. They're not getting a lot of food. They're not getting a lot of sleep. It's very cold. So him running is very significant. So he runs toward Block 36 and sees that father has survived. And the impact of this interaction of him seeing his father is that he says it right here that he believes in miracles again. So we're going to add that here. Believe in miracles. Okay. So that's the end of the text, and I understand that I gave you everything in this assignment. That is totally fine. You are more than welcome to use it. This is sort of a reward for continuing to watch this video. I appreciate you actually watching this video. I know that not many, it's very evident that not many students do, so hopefully this is a kind of reward for doing that, okay? So I'm going to minimize this here, go back to the PowerPoint. So this is the during reading activity. We just completed it. Now, task 5 is our post-reading activity. So hopefully you enjoyed reading that text. It is a very interesting text. I would suggest reading it if you have time. Maybe you can do that for even your weekly readings. I've heard that some students have read it in 8th grade already, but if you haven't, I would highly suggest it. So if you're ready to move forward, go ahead and just scroll down on your assignment to the next assignment here. Okay. So this is assignment 4C. All this space will be there once on your actual document. Okay, so this is assignment 4C. Just follow along as I read the directions. In the space below, craft your response to the essential question: how does the author develop the theme of strength through his, unity in his memoir, Night? So from that excerpt. Remember that you're using recesses to build your response. Your thoroughly written paragraph should be about 10 to 12 sentences. You don't have to label your sentences or separate them. Just make it one cohesive paragraph. It should take you about 20 to 30 minutes, but I would highly, highly suggest using the quotes that come from this graphic organizer right here. It will help you. That can give you your first, your sites here, and then you'll just have to explain them. So remember that we talked about unity, so the strength through unity. So how does he develop that theme? So he develops it by using these instances and these interactions with the characters that are in the memoir. So that can be your, your topic there. So just use that idea that Elie Wiesel uses these characters and the interactions between these characters to develop the theme of strength, and then just give examples. So I just gave you the answer to that. Now it's your job just to write it. Okay, so take about 20-ish minutes to go through that. Be thoughtful in your response. And lastly, you have your reading assignment. So on the days that you're not completing your Achieve article, you are supposed to be completing your independent reading. Make sure that you guys are doing that. Okay, you can use a book that you have at home, or you can use the public library website. I have this on every single PowerPoint that I give to you each week. Just make sure you're filling out your weekly reading log. It is part of the grade. Okay, so lastly, this last slide here is the actual text of Night by Elie Wiesel. It's free to you. You just copy and paste this link into your browser, and it should work. If it doesn't work, just please contact me. I appreciate you guys engaging in our virtual classroom this week, and I look forward to next week's lesson. Check back next Monday. If you have any questions about this lesson, feel free to join the live sessions. They're every day, Monday through Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Feel free to ask me any questions if you need help with anything. Okay? I hope everyone has a great week, and don't forget to smile every day this week.